So what about issues in intimacy? Should I continue to sleep with my husband if he's dating someone else? Sonia asks that. I'm going to read the next question right with it. My wife is speaking with another guy and wants a divorce. She moved out. We're still intimate with each other. Should I stop being intimate with her and find another way to bring her home? Okay. 2 more questions in the same topic. My husband left me for a person 25 years younger than him. It has been a month since he left, and he's begging for us to stay friends. Now he wants to have sex with me to the point of begging. How should I respond? And another, we divorced for 1 year, but he's willing to be friends, and we're in the reconciliation phase. No intimacy so far. How can I talk to him about being intimate without pushing him away? That's Alicia. Well, I'm going to save Alicia's question for last. The other 3 kind of go together. Kimberly Holmes, our CEO, and I actually did a couple of videos not too long ago that you can find in YouTube. So if you go to youtube.com/marriagehelper, one long word, I had done some earlier videos like a couple of years ago that are also in there. But Kimberly and I did these in the last 3 months or so. And we spend time talking about having sex with a spouse, whether you're separated from the spouse, all those kinds of things. Now, I'm not going to try to reproduce everything that we said in those 2 videos, but let me give you a couple of things to think about here. Whatever you decide to do when it comes to intimacy, and here they're talking about intimacy being sex. Whatever you decide to do, make sure that you want to do it. There's 2 kind of motivations out there. Now, according to how you look at it, there are a number of different kinds of motivations, but generally speaking, there are 2 kind of motivations out there. One is what's called an approach motive. Back in the beginning, they called it an appetitive motive. But nobody could spell appetitive. So now it's called an approach motive. And the other is called an avoidance motive. An approach motive basically says, I do this because it benefits me in some fashion. When people do things for an approach motive, it tends to build up their own self-esteem. They feel good about themselves. They tend to feel better about the other person. An avoidance motive says, I'm doing this because I want to avoid a negative consequence. So if you're driving down the interstate and you see a state trooper and you slow down to the speed limit, that's an avoidance motive. I'm doing this not because I want to, not even because it benefits me, but because I want to avoid a negative consequence that's going to occur if I don't. Now, all of us do some things for an avoidance motive, okay? But if in relationship to a particular person, you regularly do things for an avoidance motive, I'm doing this not because it benefits me, but I'm doing this because I don't want to put up with the crap that's going to happen if I don't. I don't want to put up with the begging. I don't want to put up with the griping. I don't want to put up with a cold shoulder. Therefore, I'm going to go ahead and do this. When it comes to doing anything, like the question we had way back at the beginning, about an hour and 20 minutes ago, when the gentleman was saying, should I keep going over there every time she calls me? What's your motive? Now, if it's benefiting you in some fashion, then you probably will feel good about it. But if you're doing it because you want to avoid a negative consequence, you're going to feel bad about it. Now, stay with me. Going to get a little bit complicated here. If I'm having sex with my straying spouse because I'm afraid that she's going to leave me if I don't, that's not an approach motive. That's an avoidance motive. You say, what? It's not because you're trying to accomplish something for you. It's because you're trying to avoid some negative consequence. And the negative consequence you're trying to avoid here is your spouse going away. And so if you're even going to contemplate having sex with your spouse, ask yourself, is it because I want to do this? Is it going to benefit me in some fashion? I want to have an orgasm. I want to have companionship. I want to be able to have some close feelings with another person. Therefore, I want to fulfill my sex drive, and here's a person I think it would be safe to have it with. That's an approach motive. If you do that, you're going to wind up feeling good about yourself. You're probably going to feel good about the other person. But if you do it only because you think he or she's going to leave you if you don't, that's going to be an avoidance motive, and you're going to wind up questioning yourself. You're going to wind up thinking badly about you, like, I'm just a piece of meat. I'm being used. This is not really who I am. I feel bad about this. I'm a doormat, all those kinds of things. So start with that. Do you really want to do it for your approach motive where it benefits you, or is it an avoidance motive? And I would strongly recommend, if it's an avoidance motive, don't. Now, again, it's your choice. You get to decide. I can't tell you what to do, but I don't see how that's going to benefit you in any fashion. Now, once you make that decision, there's some other things you might want to think about. Like, for example, okay, he's involved with this woman who's 25 years younger than I am, and he's begging me for sex. Now, you've got to ask yourself that question, just like Sonia, who asked the first question. Should I continue to sleep with my husband if he's dating someone else? Ask yourself, after you ask yourself about the approach and avoidance, ask yourself this: what message am I giving the other person? Am I giving a message that I am endorsing the behavior that he or she is doing right now? If you want to give that message, or if you don't care if you give that message, and you feel it's an approach motive, then why not? Okay, if he's dating her, as long as I can get my sexual fulfillment, okay, I'm going to have sex with him, even if he thinks, okay, you can have the proverbial cake and eat it too. If, on the other hand, you're thinking, no, that's not the message I want to give, that it's okay if you date her and you sleep with me at the same time, even if you felt it was an approach motive, I would suggest that you don't do it if you don't want to give that message. Then there's another thing here, and that would be health considerations, especially now with this pandemic going on, because you don't know what he or she may bring into your house if they're having that kind of close contact with another person, because you don't know what that other person is doing all day long, who they're around, who they're exposed to, et cetera. And so you have the possibility of getting COVID. Now, if you're not afraid of that, you might be saying, I'm young, I'm vibrant, it doesn't scare me about that. What other potential things might they be bringing in? I mean, you understand that the person that your spouse is sleeping with out there may have recently been sleeping with other people as well. If not while doing it right now, while still involved with your spouse, it may be that they were involved with somebody not long before being involved with your spouse. And you don't know what kind of things they have that they might give your spouse that your spouse might give you. So sexually transmitted diseases, up to and including HIV, AIDS, that kind of thing. So I would suggest you also think about that very carefully. And at the same time, if you're thinking, okay, but if I do this, then maybe he or she will come back. Could it possibly affect that to happen? Okay, there's some pros to it. One of the pros is that at orgasm, by the way, I hope I'm not offending you by using that word, but when I earned my PhD at the University of Sydney in Australia, I was studying the causes of and correlations between marital satisfaction and sexual satisfaction. So I've studied a great deal about sex, you would understand. If you're doing it because you want to have this fun with him or her, you want to have fulfillment, one of the pluses is that at orgasm, both males and females at orgasm produce a pretty good amount of oxytocin. Oxytocin at orgasm will go into the body in two ways, one into the autonomic nervous system and the other into the bloodstream as a hormone. And when that happens, it's a bonding chemical. It can actually bond the two of you. And so could it have a pro about potentially helping your husband or wife come back? Yeah, actually could have a pro because it's a bonding chemical. But if they're also having sex with this other person, that bonding chemical is occurring with that person as well. If you think I'm going to do this because this is the key that's going to get him or her to come back, this is the key, then you're setting yourself up for some potential disappointment. Might it be a factor in their coming back? Yes. Will it be the factor in their coming back? Highly unlikely. Highly unlikely. But it can be a factor in their coming back. And besides, what emotional damage might it do to you? Seriously, if you're doing it out of this avoidance motive. I'm so afraid of losing you that I'll sleep with you even if you're sleeping with that woman who's 25 years your junior. I'll sleep with you even if you're dating that other person over there. I'll sleep with you because you're begging me to. I'm going to do that. If you're doing it for that avoidance motive, the pain that you already feel is in all likelihood going to be magnified dramatically.